Israel has decided to stop aid going into Gaza for now. It comes a day after Israel said it had approved a proposal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza during Ramadan and Passover. The first phase of the original ceasefire deal with Hamas ended on Saturday. Israel says the new plan was proposed by the U.S. President's envoy, Steve Witkoff. Well, Hamas says it wants the original deal implemented in full. It's accused Israel of breaching key parts of the first phase. Israel hasn't allowed in thousands of mobile homes needed by displaced Palestinians, and only 10% of 200,000 tents to be used as shelters have been delivered. Hind Khoudary is standing by for us in Khan Younis. But first, let's speak to Nour Odeh. She's joining us live from Jordan's capital, Amman. She's there because the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority have banned Al Jazeera from reporting from inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. Nour, firstly, what are you hearing about Israel saying that it's stopping all aid shipments into Gaza?
Well, Elizabeth, the announcement coming hours after the declaration by the Israeli Prime Minister's office that there's a new offer on the table, that the timeline and the phases of the ceasefire agreed on initially in January are no longer applicable, and that instead they want a deal that would cover the month, a holy month of Ramadan, during which Hamas must release half of the living and dead Israeli captives. Now it's the early morning hours, beginning of the business day. This announcement really caters to calls within the Israeli government that Israel must apply pressure on Hamas. It must weaponize the entry of humanitarian assistance. So closing of all access points to the Gaza Strip, not allowing humanitarian aid, in violation, it says, or it says because Hamas is violating the agreement or the Witkoff proposal. We have not heard from Hamas specifically about the proposal, but that is the Israeli line, that this closure of crossings, that not allowing humanitarian assistance is because Hamas is not engaging on the Witkoff proposal.
Nour, stay with us. We want to come back to you for the latest on this U.S. proposal that Israel has signed onto. I just want to bring our correspondent in Gaza in at this point. Hind Khoudary is joining us live from Khan Younis in southern Gaza. And Hind, you are able to tell us what a difference the aid that's been coming in during the first phase, the 6 weeks of the first phase of the ceasefire, has made to Palestinians in Gaza, and what the stopping of that aid, the impact that will have on people there.
We're talking about 600 trucks every single day that were entering the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire deal, and 600 trucks were barely enough for the huge demand of Palestinians after 470 days of war. We're talking about a whole population that is totally relying on humanitarian aid because Palestinians were on the move. They were displaced from place to another. They lost all of their jobs. They have zero income, and the humanitarian aid was the only way Palestinians were eating. We're talking about food assistance, hot meals, community kitchens, and also tents, tarps, and winter clothes, because Palestinians were unable to buy or purchase anything that is available in the markets. Now, we have been here on Salah ad-Din since the early hours of the mornings, and we did not see any aid trucks entering the Gaza Strip. Normally, during the ceasefire deal, we have been seeing aid trucks coming over and over again, holding and carrying different food assistance for different food parcels from different agencies. Now this is going to make a lot of stress among Palestinians, because if humanitarian assistance is not coming in, they are unable to have a meal, for example. And we know that it's Ramadan now, and Palestinians are completely relying on food assistance. Now, another thing, Palestinians were expecting that today mobile houses are going to start entering, caravans, construction, and as you see, this is one of the trucks that we're seeing all of the trucks empty, and we are not seeing any uploaded trucks. So Palestinians are now feeling a little bit depressed. They're feeling that a little bit drowning because they thought that today is going to be a step closer to the second phase, where more reconstruction and more humanitarian aid is going to be entered and allowed to come into the Gaza Strip.
Hind, I believe we'll be back with you shortly, but as we've mentioned, let's take a look at the ceasefire extension that Israel has been talking about. It's approved a proposal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza during Ramadan and Passover. A statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office says, on the first day of the outline, half of the hostages, both alive and dead, will be released. And at the end, if an agreement is reached on a permanent ceasefire, the remaining hostages will be released. Steve Witkoff proposed the outline after he felt there was no possibility of bridging the position of the parties to end the war, and that additional time was needed for talks on a permanent ceasefire. It says Hamas has so far refused to accept the new proposal, but that if it changes its position, Israel will immediately enter into negotiations on all the details of the Witkoff plan. Let's bring Nour Odeh back in. So that's the statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office. Nour, what else are you hearing from Israel about this proposal?
Well, look, this was almost predictable, Elizabeth. Israelis knew this was coming. This is why we saw protests overnight from the families of Israeli captives and the oppositions. This is why we've been hearing from Israelis accusing Netanyahu of trying to derail the ceasefire, because this is what key ministers have been talking about for some time now. They do not want to pledge an end to the war. They do not want to commit to an end to the war. And instead, what they want is a formula of assistance for captives. And this is basically what it boils down to. Releasing half of the captives, dead or alive, on the first day, if Hamas agrees to this formula, in exchange for calm and allowing humanitarian assistance in. And that's why this announcement about shutting down the crossings and not allowing aid is seen as a way to pressure Hamas into submission, if you will. And it really is driving the worst fears of the families of Israeli captives, that this is going to sabotage any hope that they had of reuniting with their loved ones. We've heard from key ministers in the Israeli government saying that the formula of phase 2, of phase 3, of talking about the day after, of Gaza reconstruction, of ending the war, is simply unacceptable to them, and it could jeopardize the coalition. What Witkoff proposed is a way to, first of all, save Netanyahu, but also try and see if calm can be maintained at least in the coming 42 hours. For now, the right-wing figures in the government and outside the government have welcomed the announcement by the Israeli Prime Minister. We're waiting to see what the reaction of the families of Israeli captives are this morning. But certainly this just drives a deeper wedge between those families and the Israeli government, which seems almost tone deaf to their pleas for a ceasefire.
Nour, thank you very much for that. For now, that is Nour Odeh live in Amman, and we will, of course, be going back to her for any updates on this story. Well, let's go back to Hind Khoudary. She's joining us live from Khan Younis. And Hind, you've been telling us about how stressful this has been for people, the first day of what was supposed to be phase 2. And instead of seeing all of those mobile homes, those tents arriving in Gaza as people have been waiting for weeks, there's now news that Israel is stopping all aid. How are people there reacting? This news has just come in about the aid, but, you know, to this proposal of an extension of a ceasefire.
Well, Palestinians feel that this is fragile from the first day, and every day something happens. If Israel delays or postpones anything related to the ceasefire, Palestinians feel the threat, feel that the Israeli forces are going to launch more airstrikes. But we are now in the streets, and people are starting to wake up, and they have been approaching us. What does it mean that no humanitarian aid is coming? Is the war going going to resume? Are the Israeli forces going to launch their airstrikes? And Palestinians are not ready for this. They have been in an ongoing battle for 470 days. This is during the war. And after the war, the situation was very hard because Palestinians came back to their houses, did not find any houses, and they have been moving from place to another, searching for a place to start their lives from all over again. Now, the situation now is very stressful. Palestinians are full of anxiety and depression, fearing that this war is going to resume in any minute. We can also hear Israeli drones and F-16s hovering in the sky above us, and this has been since the early hours of the morning. Also, Palestinians hearing that humanitarian aid is going to stop is also making the situation worse, and Palestinians are feeling that there is a threat that this might not continue or last.
Hind, thank you very much for that. That is Hind Khoudary joining us live from Khan Younis in southern Gaza.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.